Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome. It's Orange Bloods Live. I'm Jeff. He's Anwar. We're talking Texas Scrimmage number 2. It's in the book. Steve Sarkisian gave a report. Orange Bloods reporters have been digging for information. We got the whole thing. You can go over to orangebloods.com, scan that QR code, check it out. But we're going to talk about some of it right now. Hit the thumbs up button, like the video, comment, get notifications, all of those things. And if you're so inclined, jump into the Specs chat. Send us some super chats. We like cash if you want to just give it to us. Anwar, I listened to Sark in the post game. I've read Jason Sukumel's scrimmage report, which was posted just before over on Orange Bloods before I was able to listen to the whole thing. So I have a combination of thoughts based on things that Sarkisian talked about today. It didn't feel like there was a single aha gotcha moment, right? Last week, defense dominates. Today, Sark just seemed pleased at the overall proceedings, that the team is, I think maybe the headline is offense doesn't screw around and have a bunch of pre-snap flags. Because that's what he mentioned, that a week ago they had 10 or 11 and today they had 2. But I didn't, it felt like they put in a good Saturday workout. No reason to change the Ohio State point spread based off anything that happened today.
Well, I would say that, Catch. Like there was. Yes, I think this was kind of, operation, kind of proceeding as usual kind of thing. We talked about this before. There aren't a whole lot of position battles at this moment. And because there really aren't a whole lot of position battles, there's not a lot of drama. So this is really just more about going out and executing. I do have some thoughts on things that really kind of stood out to me.
Oh, I do too. I just don't know that there's a big... Nobody got hurt. There's not like a thing on Monday that we'll be doing a massive overreaction to. But I do think he said a lot of things today and name-checked some players that give us an idea of what it will look like. And sometimes it's not who he says, it's who he doesn't say. So I think we can go position by position. Let's start at quarterback, can we? Because
I think we have to start there.
I don't think he talked about Arch again today. He talked about the backup job, and he gave some love to KJ Lacey, and I was like, okay. He mentions that Ryan Wingo had some big plays. There weren't turnovers, so there wasn't anything bad. But it's weird. At the end of the proceedings today, I was like, I feel like I know how every quarterback did specifically other than Arch, which – I don't know. Maybe we're just going to get through camp and Arch has the last quietest month of his life before it's never quiet again. But I don't know. What'd you think about the quarterbacks?
Yeah, he didn't say much about Arch, right? And because he still gave some defense the love. But here's my thing. And I know we would save things for overreaction Monday. But this is Saturday. We can react as well. We don't have to wait for anything.
Give me an overreaction Saturday.
Man, Trey Owens, you say Arch's name ain't being called. Trey's name is not being called. And this is the second straight week he's talked up KJ Lacey and talked about the good things that KJ has done. If I'm Trey, I'm a little nervous right now because KJ – of the backups, he's the guy that Sark mentions the most. Like, he is the guy that he's really, really excited about. Now, Sark may play it safe when it's all said and done, Catch. And he may just say, you know what? Matthew Caldwell, he's got experience. If anything happens, and Arch needs to go out of the game to blow his nose for, a quarter, maybe, he'll go with Matthew Caldwell. But KJ Lacey, quiet as kept, has been a dude who just Sark really, really likes what KJ is doing. And I don't think it's an accident that when he comes out of the scrimmage, he mentions KJ's name once again.
KJ Lacey, in a world where they needed a starting quarterback for 10 weeks, is the second string quarterback. I think he's been the second string quarterback since the spring because I think that's when they went, oh, we want a redshirt KJ Lacey. And Trey Owens may not afford us that opportunity. we need to go out and get somebody. I think in Columbus, Matthew Caldwell's the backup quarterback. But KJ Lacey's their second best quarterback. And, I think it's a wrap for Trey Owens. That may be harsh. He's been passed up by two players. And it just kind of is what it is. And I think he was one of the top 5 players in the program that needed to have a day-to-day that changed the way maybe Sark is thinking about him. And instead, first name out of his mouth, KJ Lacey. I was like, oh, him again? And look, if you're a Texas fan, that's good. Hey, man, it's not imperative that Trey Owens be great or even good. It's imperative that somebody be very good or good. I'm Arch Manning. And coming out of the spring, they didn't feel like they really had that answer. I think KJ Lacey continues to earn faith. I've thought Caldwell's the guy that if there's a hangnail, he'll get the call in Columbus. But I don't know if beyond that, I wonder, we're not going to see the second string quarterback unless there's an injury in Columbus. But week 2, we should. And I wonder what the quarterback order looks like when the month of September begins and there's some scrub third quarter playing time, fourth quarter playing time. They're going to get KJ Lacey 4 games. So when do they play him? When does he get used? I don't think Trey Owens is a factor. I think Trey Owens is probably really 4th. And that's just – and look, man, somebody's got to be 4th at every position on the team. And I think Sark won't say it, but if you listen to everything that he is saying, he's kind of saying it. And oh, by the way, Anwar, he's one thing he is saying at running back. I love me some CJ Baxter. Someone asked me a CJ Baxter question, please.
Bruh, it's funny. I watched you guys on Friday, and I heard Chad kind of poking fun about you and I always talking about that being Sark's boo. That's being Sark's boo. Like, it's his boo. Like, it is what it is. Like, CJ's on his screensaver. Now, I'm not going to go as far as you said, as far as him hoping for the relationship breakup thing, but I do but he loves that man. He loves him. He said today, Catch, that he was going into the season thinking to himself, you know what? I may have to pace this guy a little bit. And he said he told CJ, like, man, we're not going to do that. And what's interesting, Catch, is he described Wisner and Baxter as 1A and 1B. And he didn't say who was who, but we're going to assume that Wisner was 1A and Baxter's 1B. I'm going to assume it. I might be wrong, but he's letting us know that guy, my guy's back. Yeah. My guy has come back from that injury. My guy is recovered from that thing. My guy's looking good, and damn it, my guy is going to play, and I'm looking forward to it.
He said, I came into camp, and I was going to be conservative, and I was going to hold him back. We were going to protect him. F that. F that. And he goes, and I told him that today. We are letting him loose. It's pretty clear they've got a timeshare at running back. They're going to have a one-two punch. I expect him to rave on CJ Baxter, and I can't wait for CJ Baxter. I can't wait to see what it looks like against Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting, although he did not. The question was about running back depth, and that's when he said we've got 1A and 1B. Then in order, although he didn't say these are the guys in order, it was very stream of conscious. And he goes, then we've got Christian Clark. Then there's Jarek and James. He actually paired those guys together as a combo and then didn't say Ricky Stewart's name. He just said 5 guys. He said technically he said 1A, 1B, Then we've got Christian Clark. Then there's Jarek and James. And that was the order he put them in. And I thought, whether it was a Freudian slip or not, I think that is the running back pecking order going into, I think it's probably a tie. I think there's 1A and 1B. I think Christian Clark is 3. I think there's a tie at 4 between Simon and Gibson. And I don't think Sark meant to just flat out say that, but I think that's kind of what he said. And I think it would not be an unsafe way of Texas fans to think about the running back position.
Yeah, I think, look, when it's all said and done, Catch, if, Baxter remains healthy, he's got Wisner. Those are the 2 guys that he rides with. Anybody else, they'll get their couple of touches per game. They'll probably have to contribute on special teams, but it really boils down to those 2. And really everybody else, Catch, they need to get their Jonathan Brooks on, where they have to, if something happens, I got to capitalize and I've got to be able to catch lightning in a bottle. That's their role right now because, look, Wisner, we know. How many times have we heard the SEC's only returning 1,000-yard back, right? So we know Wisner's to do. Baxter's there. And then really it's about who can fill in behind them. Is really big. Who do you think is the third guy?
I think right now it's Christian Clark.
Yeah, that's why.
And I think if I'm Jarek Gibson, man, he's on transfer watch. No, these are things that like people get upset when you say them, but like he's a second-year guy who's probably 4th in the pecking order. He's being mentioned in the same sentence with James Simon, who's a true freshman. I just don't know that dude can't. I think what you said is right. He's going to need the Jaden Blue miracle save, which if you remember a couple of years ago, Jaden Blue looked like he was on the way out the door. Brooks got hurt. They had to play Jaden Blue. And then it was like, oh my God, that guy's averaging 6+ yards a carry. He's good. And then they fought. By the way, Quinn Ewers threw his first preseason touchdown pass while we've been doing the show. Attaboy, Quinn. Just wanted to throw that out there. Weirdly, he threw it to Theo Weiss. So whoever saw that coming.
I mean, listen, thank goodness, because last week wasn't good. And I was like, this is not this. So it's funny. My neighbor this morning was like, man, I heard, Quinn was opening up some eyes down there in Miami. And I was like, well, they kind of closed last weekend during the preseason game. And he's like, what? And I had to tell him, like, yeah, it really wasn't that great. So I'm glad Quinn is rebounding.
Zach Wilson was excellent in the first half. The backup quarterback job's done. Quinn is playing to put Miami in a position where do we keep a third quarterback or can he play so well that someone will claim him on waivers? Otherwise, he's going to end up on the practice squad. Like, it's pretty cut and dry. Whatever happens, the rest of the second half will go a long way, I think, to kind of defining what happens with him in the next 3 weeks or so. So I love, hey, nice job, Quinn. Keep it up. More of that. Wide receiver, really interesting comments at wide receiver today. Someone asked, I don't remember the exact question, but it was who made explosive plays. He specifically said Ryan Wingo had some. And then he was like, DeAndre Moore, mentioned DeAndre's name. It was just good to hear him say DeAndre's name. It feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so those two guys, duh, right? The name that you next would have expected him to say would have been Livingstone. And he didn't say his name today. And there was no Emmett Mosley sighting as far as I know.
Yeah.
The names he mentioned, I think this is kind of exciting. He mentioned Khalil Lockett, and he actually brought up Khalil Lockett a couple of different times today. And first, he brought up, it was funny because he mentioned the wide receivers had the run game today was not good. He was talking about explosive plays. And he's like, this receiver had some explosive plays. He got to running back and he was like, some like nice moments.
Mm-hmm.
Touche. It goes with what Jason said, which was the pass protection was pretty damn good. on a day when Trevor Gooseby wasn't at left tackle, they were playing Jaden Chapman, and Sark sang the praises of Jaden Chapman, said he had a good practice and that today was probably a good thing for him. He mentions Khalil Lockett, though, and he mentions Dalen McCutcheon.
Yeah. My guy, by the way.
It feels like those two dudes may play. I don't know if anybody's going to play more than a half dozen reps against Ohio State as those freshmen in game one. But if anybody does, it feels like those two guys have pushed themselves to the front of the line. And, you know, it was one of the stories I had for me going into the scrimmage today was which of those freshman wide receivers maybe pops today and puts himself into a position where they start thinking 2 weeks from now, we've got a game, who plays? And no other receivers' names were mentioned today. If I'm not mistaken, he brings up Wingo and he brings up Moore, and then he says Lockett and McCutcheon. Nobody else was mentioned as it relates to anything that happened today.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You know, it looked, you know, McCutcheon's been pretty consistent throughout the offseason from a freshman perspective. Like, we're not saying like he's a guy that we're expecting to compete for a starting job. None of these guys are competing for a starting job. Catch, one of the things I've noted this entire week, this has been such a fascinating thing where over the last couple of years, Sark has gotten 5 stars on this team. And it's been like, all right, we'll get to you when we get to you. Like, if you remember, remember when Texas would get a 5-star? You remember, like, Malik Jefferson shows up, and they're like, man, you got to play. Like, we got a 5-star? Like, hell yeah. And now you've got all these 5 stars, and they're like, yeah, well, that's cool. Well, you continue to grow and develop, and you'll play a little bit, and you go from there. It's like it's a crazy world of good. It's a good problem to have, by the way. This is a good problem. These are all good things, right? First world problems. So that relates to these freshmen. You know, several years ago, Catch, you're throwing those guys out there, and because you're like, we ain't got nobody else. And now you've got these freshman receivers. You're like, cool, take your time and develop. And so we're hearing, you know, like you said, you mentioned French, but you mentioned Dalen, and they've been pretty consistent. Does that necessarily mean they get a ton of reps in that 2D? Probably not. But it does mean that they've been able to show, you know, a lot of things to the staff. And those 2 guys in particular, probably the guys that you're looking at that, you know, hey, they're traveling on the road.
Lockett, not French, by the way. Today,
I'm sorry. I apologize, Lockett. I apologize.
No,
Lockett. Thank you for the clarity. Thank you. Those guys are the guys you look at and say, okay, those are probably traveling on the road. Those are the guys that they're taking to Ohio State. Like, those are going to be the difference makers.
In fact, one guy catches a single pass in that game, my money's on McCutcheon right now. Yes. But if you tell me that one guy makes a play, it might be Khalil Lockett. You can just Sark had a little extra bounce when he said his name today, and my little spidey senses was like, okay. Not that we should be shocked. I mean, Khalil Lockett, he's supposed to be a bad mamma jamma. So it's actually good to hear that somebody's name flashed. Offensive line, we talked about Jaden Chapman flashing. I thought what was interesting today is Sark didn't yell fire in a crowded theater at all. I mentioned that these set of comments on Orange Bloods, and people act like I literally was like screaming that Sark was ready to call the season over. But he was asked, what's the biggest concern that you have with this team? And specifically, it was like on your 2 deep. And then it was like kind of a generic, what's your biggest concern?
Yeah.
And then he said, realistically, it's the offensive line. He said, he goes, nobody ever has 10. You'd like to have 8. And then he said 8 and then 2 that you feel good about. And he was essentially saying you in a best case world, you've got 8 and you got 2 that won't get you killed. And then he said, he basically was saying, I don't know if I've got 8. And if I have any concerns, it may not be like the Titanic is going down, but you asked me, do I have any concerns? It would be offensive line depth. And then actually the most interesting part of the answer is what he said next, which was, I ain't really got no concerns anywhere else. He said, he was like, every other position, I like our depth. I got no questions anywhere else. Just the offensive line. And so when I reported that, like Sark says, he's got a little bit of an offensive line concern, I also reported he literally said, I'm pretty cool everywhere else. And I think that's this program's come a long way.
Shit, it has.
Where 5-star receivers can't get on the field. His only question mark is like offensive line. And I think you got to give it like some full context. If you go back to the very beginning of his first comments coming out of the gate, where compared to a week ago, we were a lot better. And where were we a lot better? He basically, a week ago, he'd have been in his feelings over his offense being described as a bit of a goddamn train wreck. Mm-hmm. He show up on Tuesday, and he was like, well, we went 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out. And we moved the ball a little bit, but then we got stopped. And, you know, it was all right. Not a lot of touchdowns, but, you know, today he shows up, and he's like, hey, and I'm paraphrasing here. This is not a direct quote, people. We were really sloppy as hell last week on offense. Mm-hmm. Illegal procedures, illegal formations, pre-snap penalties. He literally said, we had like 10 or 11 of those last week. And I was like, damn, Sark, that's your group. But he showed up today and he was like, I think we had 2 of those today. So when he's talking about the offensive line and he's talking about, do we have 8 guys? It's not even like, do we have 8 guys that can line up? I think it's like, do we have 8 guys that if we have 5 of any of those 8 on the field together, are we going to break down with stupid stuff? And I think he felt like today he was much closer to, nah, we're going to be okay. We're not going to disintegrate if I have to play a couple of these other guys. But it is the one area that, like, he probably is not having a lot of sleepless nights, but I bet occasionally he wonders about that offensive line.
I mean, the thing is, Catch, look, we love Trevor Gooseby, and we love everything as far as his ascent, and you and I both love his NFL potential. Just his measurables are going to be through the roof. I mean, all he's got to do is to stay healthy. He's fine. Catch today for me was that oh shit kind of moment, because he did say, Trevor, he said, if this had probably been a regular season game, this is where you kind of have them push through. But I don't know what it looks like, Catch, if Trevor Gooseby needs to go to the locker room and get some tissues, and Jaden Chapman is your starting left tackle. We know Trevor came in and he was able to do a really good job in those games that he started in and had to have substitute roles. I don't know what it looks like if, one of those guys, Brandon Baker is not around, or Trevor Gooseby is not around, or DJ Campbell. I'm not as plug and play with that line as I am with, as we talk about the running backs. We're like, ton of those, right? Ton of receivers, ton of defensive linemen. Well, not as many on the linebackers. A boatload Catch of DBs. I mean, these backup DBs are starters at most programs in the country. And that's the only thing that you're just looking at. And offensive linemen get banged up. That happens all the time. They come out for a series, they come out for a half, something to that effect. That was the only, what does this look like if Trevor Gooseby is in the locker room for a second? Am I as confident in this line at that point? And right now, I don't know. I can't say I am.
And I think, again, context means everything here, because it's not about most of the games on the schedule. It's about Ohio State. Like, how's your offensive line against Ohio State? Because we remember how it was a year ago against Ohio State. And we remember how it was against Georgia. And, oh, by the way, they're going to play Georgia at least one time this season. I could see Georgia being on the schedule 3 times before it's all said and done. To me, they're the two, along with Ohio State, they're the 3 favorites to play the national championship game. So that could happen. What does it look like in those games? Not Sam Houston State, not Mississippi State, not even A&M. Like, not most of the games on the schedule. It's at the most important moments of the season. What's that group like? TBA. I think they have to survive Ohio State, win the damn game. Don't come out of that with any wild conclusions about the offensive line. And then see what it looks like coming out of September. They essentially have 3 preseason games after that. Mm-hmm. And Jaden Chapman is going to get some playing time in those games. And they'll get a little bit of a better sense of like, oh, okay, well, if we need a guy, what they need to not happen is no injuries. Yeah. No starter goes down. Get through the Ohio State game, try to win that game. But then I think you really the top comes off this entire program after Ohio State because the whole month of September is wide open. And win or lose that game in Columbus, they then get to grow up a little bit, a bunch of guys. Like we talked about the wide receiver position. I don't know about Columbus. Maybe it's just one game too soon, but I'll bet some money that we get some Khalil Lockett and Dalen McCutcheon week 2, week 3, week 4. And I think that I don't want to scream panic on the offensive line because I've probably been the one that's rang the bell all year long that's the biggest question mark, mainly because a lot of people just want to act like this team doesn't have any. Or they want to act like the offensive line was a bunch of bums last year and that they were the reason why the team was terrible. And it was like, well, no, it's not quite what happened. They were actually damn good, if I dare say, in a lot of games. Like they were damn good against Michigan, damn good against A&M, but against Georgia and Ohio State, not damn good. And so because they weren't good against those teams and those were the games that Texas lost, it's kind of like easy to just be like, well, that was the weak link. And it was like, well, no, they were really good for 10 of the 11 or 12 of the 16 games. I think this offensive line will be the exact same thing. It's those other games. And I think that, man, when they get to September, they need all those dudes. They need to let, I don't know, maybe rotate in the entire second offensive line and let them get a seat. I don't know, like, they got to find a way to get to October and not feel in October about the offensive line the way I think they probably feel in August. And I think there's a pathway to get there, but it ain't happening in the next 2 weeks. Fair
enough. I can't disagree with you as relates to that. Once you get past Ohio State, those 3 games, you'd rotate as many as possible, which, by the way, is so funny. And I didn't know the answer to this, and this is kind of funny to me, but I know we'll hit the defense, and I know we've been going about 30 minutes. What's the order of games after Ohio State before they get to Florida? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Yes.
What is it? Don't look it up.
No, look, here's the thing.
I saw you typing.
Here's the thing. I entered it in one of the things I did today. And so I'm going to brag a little bit because I think if you hold me to a pop quiz, I think I can do it. But the only reason why I think I can do it is because I went into my Gmail calendar today and I entered in the entire schedule.
Okay.
I put every Liverpool game and then so I wanted to see if there were any crossovers. So I know they have San Jose State. Okay. Everybody plays against San Jose State. You with me? The good news is there's no crossover. I don't think I have to worry this year about Texas and Liverpool playing on the same day. They get UTEP on the 13th. That was my concern because no, wait, the week before that, I was concerned because this Sunday, I think it's the game after San Jose State is when Liverpool plays Arsenal. So I was a little concerned that you and I might be SOL, but we're good. We're good. And then Texas plays Sam Houston State on the 20th, and they have a bye week on the 27th, and then conference play starts. I only know that because am I right, by the way?
You are right. But it was funny because I was talking to someone today, and I was like, man, my head is so much into the Ohio State thing. And I really haven't given any thought to anything in September. I was like, I don't even know if I know the order of games. It's funny. Once I knew what Florida was.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, oh yeah, Florida, Oklahoma, Kentucky. Like I had that. But those 3 games, I'm like, yeah, I don't even know.
I had San Jose State and UTEP flip-flopped. And then I entered it in. I was like, oh, the San Jose State game that's a 6th. Okay. Yeah, no, we've been a little Ohio State. Okay, look, let's move to the defense because I do want to pace it up. I know you don't want to be doing an hour today. I just want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Sark said, I even put it in the headline, but Sark said he has 15 or 16 defensive starters. Okay. Now, I think that's the number in his head. I do not believe he said that loosely. Do you agree?
100%.
Okay. Well, let's reverse engineer our way to a question here. He specifically said he thinks he has 3 starters at safety. Jelani McDonald, Michael Taft, Derek Williams. That's 3. He said all 4 of his linebackers he views as starters. Ty Anthony Smith, Leon LaFau,
Anthony Hill,
and then obviously
the guy who moved over from the edge position.
Yes, thank you. So that's 7 of the 15 or 16, right? Well, if we say that the 2 ends make 9 and there's 2 tackles, let's say he's confident that there is 11 starters, and then he's saying we have 2 linebackers and a safety, that makes 14. It makes me think that there's some guys at defensive end. I don't think he thinks he has 3 corners. I think he thinks Muhammad and Gilbo are separate. And he said today that Kobe Black and Cade Phillips are playing their best ball now. Yes. And he said Warren Roberson has been great on special teams. Oh, and good at corner too. So he likes their corners, but he has 2 starting corners. Okay, so that puts him at 9. And he said he has 15 or 16 starters. So let's say that Ethan Burke and Colin Simmons are 2 defensive ends. Now you're at 11. Included any defensive ends or any defensive tackles. How many defensive ends and defensive tackles do we think he thinks? Because I would have expected him to say, I think I've got 19 or 20 defensive starters. I was a little surprised that 15 or 16 felt lower than I expected because given what else he said, do they have fewer on the defensive line than maybe we just assume they do? Because they talk about the depth, but he didn't. I don't know. As I did the math in my head, I'm trying to figure out who the hell are the rest of the starters. And I get to the defensive line and I'm not quite sure I know.
Well, let me cheat. Okay. And I won't cheat, but let me look up Alex's one of his last depth charts. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, let me just cheat so I can see what's in front of me. Now, do we consider Grayson Littleton in that mix, even though he hasn't mentioned him? Okay.
No, he's not one of the 15 or 16 guys. No way.
So I would say Zena may be a guy. that he might be mentioning? Because you remember he said something in the press conference about, when he talked about the offensive line and blocking, but he mentioned like the challenge of blocking a guy like Zena. So maybe let me just I'm going to throw Zena in there as one. Okay?
I agree with you. So that gives us 12.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there are any other edge guys that would be considered a starter. Not yet. So that would leave us like 4 defensive tackles.
So that would be like now. Are you including Murad Watson and Hero into your number?
No, that's what I'm asking. I'm trying to figure out like who are the defensive tackles that he views as starters.
Watson's name has come up a lot. Obviously Hero for obvious reasons. That name should be there, right? So, but if I said that, what number are we at now? If I add those 2 and Zena.
Well, look, there's 2 corners and 3 safeties is 5. There's 4 linebackers, that's 9. There's 3 defensive ends, that gets us to 12. He said 15 or 16. So that means 3 or 4 defensive tackles.
Yeah, I think Watson, Canoe. I'm not sure about Brevard yet. It's one of those things, and again, I think Zena's in that mix as well. Somewhere in there. I just need to look at it and check.
No, it's a lot better than this is a good problem to have, I guess. But I don't know. I'm just doing that nerd thing where he was so specific with, I think we have 15 or 16 starters, that I think that's the kind of thing he said to his coaching staff. And I think they've said that to each other. But he started naming all of the guys that he viewed as starters, and that's the one area that he stopped at. So I'm curious, the next time we get Sark, ask him, like, how many starters do you think you have at defensive tackle so that we got everything else, I think.
But he's going to talk on Monday, so I can definitely see if he's in a good mood to answer it.
I just wonder who he thinks on Saturday in 2 weekends from now.
Mm-hmm.
Who does he on Monday think is, his starters at that position? If he's so willing to outline them elsewhere, I'm just curious.
Yeah, but the interesting part about that, though, Catch, is that when you talk about the interior, Sark is usually, that by committee. And I think he's mentioned, like, hey, we're going to play a lot of those interior guys this year. So I don't know from a defensive standpoint how he views that, because they're just going to rotate and rotate and rotate and rotate and have, hopefully try to wear guys down, but make sure they don't wear their own guys down. So that part is an interesting one.
Yeah. The only thing that he mentioned there's no need to spend a lot of time on the defense. He mentioned Manny Muhammad. Again, it feels like Manny Muhammad's name's been mentioned a lot, and yet he was like, I challenged Manny Muhammad and I wanted to see more from him. And I think I saw more again in practice from him. He's having a hell of a camp, and it sounds like they're putting more on his plate, and he's accepting the challenge and doing well with it. He mentioned that defensively, the only turnover was a running back quarterback handoff mishap.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a day where the defense didn't create turnovers. And he made a point to say, I kind of feel like we left some on the field today, that we were in opportunities and didn't make plays. He didn't really elaborate. Did somebody drop picks? Was there a fumble that they didn't?
He said it was center to quarterback, Catch. He was center to quarterback. Was the
center quarterback? Okay.
Center to quarterback.
Well, I need to update that in my notes then. Because I said quarterback, running back, I think, but I didn't say any names. He didn't say any names, so it was kind of nebulous and vague. I don't know. It just felt like he had a practice today, and they called it.
Another thing too, before Catch, it seems like special teams. He would say like good as relates to like the kicking game. We've heard that the punting game is going really well, but he was asked about Mason and just kind of went good, but he didn't say like whoo that was amazing. He mentioned that that there was a kick that got blocked, And he said like that. Well, that's okay. That really fired him up because they take pride in being able to block kicks. So he wasn't really too stressed about that. But he didn't really go gun ho about the kicking game, but he also didn't poo poo it either.
Yeah, no, I don't think the offense struck back today. Right? It's always the second scrimmage is, can the team that got its ass kicked in the first scrimmage bounce back? Does the Empire strike back? And it's like, no, that didn't happen today, but it sounds like they had a really competitive scrimmage. It's a really good team. So it sounds like, I don't know if it was a perfect day, but it doesn't sound like there were any major injuries, which that by itself, if you said nothing else, by the way, we better keep an eye on Trey Wisner, Trevor Gooseby, and Jelani McDonald. No offense, Sark, but if one of those guys did have an injury that would keep them out on Saturday, 2 weeks from today, he'd probably talk about it today just like he did. Well, they got banged up. We took them out. We were being careful. If there was a game, they would probably go back in. Those sound like famous last words. That in 2 weeks from now, Trevor Gooseby doesn't play. And then we look back on it and go, we should have probably treated that whole Trevor Gooseby in the second scrimmage thing like was being replaced by Jaden. All I'm saying is probably just this week need to pay attention to all three of those guys because can't trust coaches. Can't trust these coaches out here. They will not be honest if there's an opportunity for them to be deceptive with regards to injuries. One thing they would not want Ohio State to know 2 weeks before the game starts is that Trevor Gooseby has a hangnail that's going to keep him out till September.
No. Here's the thing about Sark. Sark is cool about talking about injuries in like March and April. You catch him in Destin. He don't mind talking about that. We get closer to a game and we're in the season. You wasting your time.
All I'm saying is I know what he said today. Grain of slaw, just a little bit. Just don't take your eyes off the ball, people, because maybe we just need to make sure. Because if we'd said they had a scrimmage today and Trevor Gooseby, Trey Wisner, and Jelani McDonald all got hurt, people would be throwing themselves off of a bridge. Sark showed up and beat everybody to the punch and said, you know who we held out of practice today?
Yes.
It's the bedside manner as a doctor means everything. And I think we saw a little Sark managing the bedside manner. One thing he's not going to have to deal with tonight is 3 starters go down to injury. What does it all mean? He'll sleep easy tonight. I don't see any super chats. Are we good?
Yeah, there was just one. Helm TD catch, Makuba pick, Ewers pass. He actually threw a second touchdown pass catch while we've been on air.
It looks like he threw another one to Weiss. Second one to Weiss.
That's interesting.
Hey, Sark's that Ewers is not making the Dolphins, but this will ensure he's on a practice squad.
We got to release him to get him on a practice squad.
Nobody's picking him up and putting none of the teams that passed on him for 7 rounds are going to use a 53-man roster spot on him at this point. Now, if he look, there's still 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Puts a little bit more on film. Even that wouldn't be enough. He'll need to go into the third game and, really have a barn-burning performance. That's to give himself a chance realistically. But last week was a killer. Like there's only 3 preseason games and first impressions are everything. And there's not a team in the NFL that's on Quinn Ewers' watch to put him on their active roster. I think it's 20-80 that he makes the Dolphins, but he's going to make the practice squad. And that might be okay for a year. Just get in the league, learn a team, be good enough in this game is what he needs to happen that he's guaranteed. Look, if he if he put last week's performance on tape again this week's, like that might be it. They don't just keep letting 7th round draft picks go 5 of 17 and you just stay around forever. So I think he's doing what he needs to do. I think he's in a really tough spot to actually make the Dolphins because NFL teams just don't want to keep 3 quarterbacks anymore. They don't even have to they always have an emergency that it's a position that most teams look to keep to. Zach Wilson's going to be number 2. He went 15 of 23 today for 151 and a touchdown. He was really good. They've got $6 million invested in him. Quinn's just got to do what he can do, and he is. Like, he's having a good day. I am going to look forward to writing about Quinn tomorrow because, like, I don't have to be afraid to write about Quinn at this point. But, he's not – I don't know if he's going to make the Dolphins. But, I don't think it's a bad thing to make the practice squad. I mean, the most people will make this year, so just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, if you are Miami and your quarterback has had that kind of injury history, you also do got to factor that in. Like, are we convinced that Tua is going to survive an entire season? And we definitely need we need Quinn around.
Quinn got to at least play. He's got to play well enough that if Zach Wilson got hurt, they would actually ask themselves what the Colts asked themselves with Sam Ehlinger, which was, "What do you think? Do we try?" You got to be good enough that if the second guy gets hurt, they go, "Do we pick up a bum off the street who's unemployed?" Right? No offense, Jacoby Brissett, but like, do we pick up Jacoby Brissett or somebody of that ilk? Mm-hmm. Or do we go with the guy who's been with us in training camp and we think has a morsel of upside? Quinn needs today so that if it ever gets to that, they'll be like, yo, remember that preseason game when Quinn threw a couple touchdown passes? Maybe we should just roll with him as opposed to, baby steps.
Got it. Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up, Catch.
Guys, hit that thumbs up button for us. Comment. We went over 80,000 subscribers today. Thank you guys for helping us do that. It's been a big month. We've been on fire since the SEC meeting, not SEC meetings, but yeah, kind of that too. But I was going to say media days. Thanks for helping us grow. Keep us growing. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. Comment in the comment section. What's your biggest worry? What's the most exciting thing that you heard from today's scrimmage report? Let us know in the comment section. I'll make sure I jump in there and interact with you. We're going to go enjoy the rest of our Saturday, though. So for myself and for Anwar Richardson, if you need more, scan the QR code. Go to Orange Bloods. We got all kinds of stuff over there, reports all over the place. But for now, we're going to go be dads. Y'all have a good rest of the Saturday. Take care.